Stream is live.
Got my ears on. We are
Yeah.
live.
Intro?
Hold on. Sorry about that. Got to make my hair nice and neat.
Whenever you're ready, Mike.
Should probably get this all ready before I hit record. All right.
We'll wait for you. This is,
I'm here. Hello, Joel.
Good
And
morning,
Carrie's
Michael. How are
in.
you doing?
Lucas is. I'm good. Long time no see.
Yeah. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
I was going to say, if I
Carrie's
knew
here,
off
Lucas,
the top of my head.
Chris, Chloe,
Chris,
Chloe or Chloe?
Chloe, I think.
Chloe?
Yeah, Chloe. It's Chloe. All right. Where do we start? I told them I'd be doing a little updating over here, or that they hear your perspective on the weekend's activities. So Joel, I'd love to hear, without me prompting in any way other than just turning you loose. Tell me, how was the event? Your event. We'll call it your event on Sunday.
Yeah, you keep saying that and embarrassing me in front of all those people. Well, it's funny. When I first went down there with Ara, see, I had just decided, I had figured there's got to be a lot of Armenian people in San Diego, since there's a lot of Armenian people in LA, Southern California. So I contacted the people, and we had a meeting with the priest and some of the elders of the church. And at one point, as we were explaining to the priest looked at me and said, "Well, why are you coming to the city with the lowest Armenian population in North America?" And I said, "I didn't know that. I just was looking for Armenian people who in our area." So I didn't. Ara, there you are. I didn't have a big expectation that we'd have a big turnout. It's one of those fears you always have. What if you threw a party and no one came, right? So, but that wasn't the case. I thought it was fantastic. The food was good. I'd never had Armenian food, so kind of I spoiled our after event lunch, but hey, I was told, and when you're with Armenians, you're not suggested anything. You're told.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, what's that food over there? You need to get in line and you need to eat it." "Yes, sir. Will do." And I was made an honorary Armenian. Someone came up to me, because after you introduced me and everything, I said I was a non-Armenian. Somebody came up to me and said, "You're an Armenian." I said, "Well, thank you. I will try and be strong enough and tough enough in my life to live up to that, because I don't, they are the strongest, toughest people, that I met in a while." So, but no, I think everybody was very genuinely excited and appreciative of what we're doing. And your vision comes out, Michael. You're a good public speaker, and I think everybody was really taken by the vision of it. So you did a very good job. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Good review. Yeah. Oh, Ara's in here. So I embarrassed Joel, because it kind of organically, with these things, you don't really know what to expect.
Hey, and when this thing turns red, when I'm embarrassed, this thing turns red. It might as well be DEFCON 1, okay? Because it's pretty bright.
Well, so I got there a little early. I mean, I got there for the service itself, so I got there a little late. But there's no such thing as late to an Armenian church. I found out. It's like I show up and it's sparse. I got there real early, and there was, like, in the service was very sparse, but it's a 2-hour service, so most of them show up after the first hour. I'm like, oh, so it was filling up, and then the location where we were having it, I hadn't really scoped it out, but it was a permanent tent, right? When they said we'll meet at the tent, I'm like, is this what's going on? But it's like one of those kind of temporary permanent structures.
Temporary permanent, yeah.
Right. It's like the church itself is brand new within the last couple of years, and it's on this good sized piece of property. So they, I'm sure, have plans for other structures, but they put up the main church first, and then these permanent tents.
Isn't it a beautiful setting for a church?
Oh my gosh.
That
Oh my
is
gosh.
just how did you get a prime piece of real estate like that in San Diego
Right.
County? But they did. Good for
And
them.
it's such a nice building and everything. So,
It
and
is.
I said to everybody, like, I feel like I'm going to be in this place many, many times. This is only the first time. And, so, by the end of the service, the church was pretty full. And then, this is a normal place for them to migrate to, is to the tent. It wasn't like there's a special event we're going to do over
Right.
there if you want. It's like, no, a lot of people just know there's always, I think, always food or at least snacks or something over there after service. So it's
Well,
one of
yeah,
the,
and I love that too. The whole church afterwards does lunch together. That's
yep,
perfect. We have
community.
lost we have lost that in the evangelical church. It's like, hey, no, get in, park, go to the service, and get out because we need the next service coming in, park. Don't hang
Yep.
around.
Rotate
Don't
everybody
fellowship.
through, whatever.
Fellowship. What's that? No, we got the next show is coming. You got moving on about.
That's something that I was so grateful for. And
Yeah.
it was surprising when I started going to Armenian churches. It's like, oh, they have such a sense of community that obviously around the church, before and after, there's places where they gather and commune and sit around and drink coffee and talk. It's a hub, a social hub.
Right.
And so we were, welcomed into their routine and embraced. And that's been my experience. So you've got a taste of what I've been going through as I've been
Mhm.
working on this. Armenians that meet me and find out what we're doing, it's like they're instantly so grateful. And for me, the only frustration is I want to meet more of you and make it quick, and let's do this every Sunday or 3
Right.
times a week in different places. And I think that's coming. I think this is only the second event at a church, and it's just launching now. And so thank you, Joel, for following your spirit indicator, right? You've got that regulator in you. God wants me to do something. How about this? An idea pops
Yes.
into your head and it comes to fruition. And so, Joel, there's some payoff for all this patience you've had.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. Yeah.
There's more coming, but so
Okay.
we get in there and there's a kind of a head table, and it was nice having some of my crew sit up there. So I'm like, this guy over here, this is his event. He's
No,
responsible,
it's not.
and that's where I
It's-
did see that redness. That
You noticed?
all right, there. But then also, the things that happen that you don't really plan. I knew I'd have a little crew coming down with me, and I'm grateful that my wife came as well. And then we went out
It
to
was nice
lunch
to meet your wife.
afterwards. Yeah,
Lovely, your lovely wife.
and that was really really the first time that she's hung out with the crew and hearing, like when we went to the restaurant, there's some banter back and forth and some discussion, and she hears my voice getting elevated, and she doesn't like that, so she removes herself or whatever. But she stuck around. So we were at the restaurant for a while after you left, and then we went to the beach for a while. So it was just this kind of a whole day down in your neck of the woods, enjoying San Diego beaches. And
Can't beat them. You can't beat them.
yeah,
Yep.
well, it's only a couple hours down the road. So there's the update. What's our topic today, Joel? What are we talking about?
Oh, well, Gina was bugging me for a topic because somebody apparently can't come up with it.
When she
with the
texts me,
topic.
I'm like, have Joel pick.
Yeah. But I know I told her a couple weeks ago I stepped on the third rail of apparently of culture and everything, and got your hackles up. I could feel it through the computer. You were like, "Arr, you dissed Star Wars," and I was like, "Yes, I did." And
What was the
boy,
diss
did it-
again? Remind me, what did you say?
Oh, I just how we were talking about manhood with Ben, and
Oh, yeah.
and to me, I did a podcast on this once about boomer catalysts. I called them the catalysts of baby boomer culture that have led us to where we are. The dysfunction, actually, of my generation, the baby boomers, and one of them was the infantilization of men, or that why men are refuse to grow up now or can't grow up for some reason. And one of the catalysts for that to me was Star Wars. Before Star Wars, Jaws had come out a couple of years before, and Jaws made movies big. Okay. And if I'm sorry for anyone that wasn't around when Jaws was in the theater, because that was something else. And seeing Jaws for the first time in the theater, when that head popped out of the boat, the hole in the boat, and his eye popped out, I could feel the blood draining from my fingers. Right. Those movie experiences like that were brand new. But Star Wars was something completely different. A friend of mine worked in a movie theater, and he said Star Wars played for a year at his movie theater. And he said the same people kept coming back and back again. And they were the kind of people who was like, oh, very nice to meet you. Just go in the theater now, please. He goes, it became this kind of thing of its own. And people got lost in it, especially young men. And it became, that's when I think media became the adventure that young men yearn for, if that makes sense. Before we were a media saturated culture, to get adventure, you had to go to war like my dad did, or you had to go on, maybe if you're a Christian, go on a mission trip like I did. I went behind the Iron Curtain with Bibles. That was my big adventure in life that shaped me. Or whatever, climate, you had to be a mountain climber, or whatever. There wasn't a lot of options at that time for young men, because all the adventures had been done. And we didn't have the type of culture. We were rapidly becoming the type of culture where you didn't need, to make a living, you didn't need to go on a ship and sail around the world with cargo around the Cape of Africa or whatever it was. Or you didn't need to, the story is back in the day, they put up a sign saying dangerous, ocean voyage, men needed for dangerous ocean voyage, very, all through the world, slim chance of coming back alive. And there'd be men lined up out the door, because that's the kind of adventure I want. But we didn't have that culture anymore. We were losing it. And then this movie came that I didn't even see. And because I wasn't a sci-fi fan, and all of a sudden it was just, everybody was seeing it. And there was this little R2D2 guy and this little C3PO that we were a little wondering about a little bit. And this woman with cinnamon buns on her head, whatever. But it was, so it just became this huge cultural thing. And especially men who I think young men, and I didn't see the original Star Wars. I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't a sci-fi man. When I saw Empire Strikes Back and I saw those Imperial walkers, attacking the base, I thought, oh, this is for me. I got to watch this. And so I actually saw the original Star Wars at San Diego State University in Montezuma Hall on one of those projectors up on a screen. And a friend of mine said, well, you got to see the original. So we went and saw it. So that was my introduction to it, so I didn't quite get what the phenomenon was at the time, but it's become apparent to me. And so I think it's just kind of has become its own world, maybe its own. I heard one guy say Star Wars had become the faith a lot of people have replaced Christianity with. In a non-Christian world or post-Christian world, Star Wars has become a faith. Mm-hmm. So that was more or less my point, was that was one of the contributors. So I put Star Wars kind of in a negative light, and I saw you nearly wilt there. So that's my problem, is stand up. So now you can stand up for your faith there. For Star Wars.
I love hearing that, because I didn't know all those details. I mean, you're a little bit older than I am, so you were at a different stage in life when that was coming out. I was 7 years old and was going with a family member, and it just was like forced upon me, right? Nobody said, hey, do you want to go see this movie? It was like, we're going to a movie, right? And so I had no idea what I was going into. Right. Whereas you were a teenager or something at the time, and I actually love that. Like these people are crazy and became a fad and a phenomenon. And so I totally understand your point of view. There's this thing that happened in our culture. And oh, by the way, Jaws. I didn't see it in the theater because would have been like 5. But when I eventually did see it, I didn't see the head pop out of the boat because I was like this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
There were people under the seats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was years and years later, like probably 10, 20 years later before I ever watched it and actually just endured it and saw, right?
Yeah.
Like there was this one scene everybody's talking about, like, yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see it.
Oh, there was more than one scene. There's the leg coming down, and also
well, there's that. I saw most of it, but that one, the one when they're in the water and that's the one that just I couldn't bring myself to cast my eyes upon the screen. Oh, so it is. So Star Wars for me I was a 7-year-old kid, and it changed my life, and it ties into what I'm doing now, and it did replace faith, right? It was in an increasingly secularized culture. That we won't go down that rabbit hole, but may the force be with you. It's the power of storytelling, right? The power of a well-told story is going to create a belief system for people. And I say this about them, when this first kind of really cemented itself in my mind is when the movie Contact came out. Right, with Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster, that's right.
Based on Carl Sagan novel or book writing or something like that. And I watched that movie, so well done, but it's about alien life forms. And when I was a Christian at the time when I saw it, and I came out of the theater after seeing Contact, recognizing that if I weren't firmly rooted in biblical truths, right? If I weren't firmly rooted in the doctrines of Christendom and what is real and those things that resonate, spirit bearing witness to spirit, just knowing in my knower what the truth is. If I hadn't come to that place before I saw that movie, I would have come out of that movie going, oh, that is so compellingly done and told that I'm emotionally persuaded to the premise of this story. I think that might be true, right? That movie could and likely would have shaped my worldview. So that's what happened with Star Wars for people, right? It's like, I don't believe in a personal God that have ever spoke to people individually and did these things, but a force. Yeah, an impersonal force. Yeah. So it's the substitute religion for many, many people. And there are plenty of things that substitute for religion. Secularism itself is a religion, right?
Yes, it's a faith. Yeah.
You believe all kinds of crazy things, but just don't believe that Jesus Christ is God, right?
Right. Well, and it's interesting that on the thing, because I also mentioned in that podcast we did with Ben that Star Wars is being systematically destroyed now by the people who are in charge of it. And I'm wondering why that is, because, it is a very good story. Luke Skywalker is the hero. He goes on the hero's journey, right?
Yep.
He's an annoying, whiny kid, right? Who meets a mentor, and then he grows into his potential through all kinds of struggles and failures, right? Finds out his father is the most evil man in the world, in the universe, right? And he tries and fails, and Yoda is like, even Yoda is like, and then he realizes his potential. He comes to the end of his journey where he's the hero, and that can't, and that's a compelling story. But even that, and that's not necessarily an article of faith. That's just good storytelling, right? But it seems like we can't have that, because years later, the caretakers of Star Wars now decide that Luke Skywalker is an angry, twisted old man who drinks green milk from an elephant seal, snotty elephant seal. It's just they may had to make him this pathetic figure, this failure, and I'm wondering why that is. What do you see? You're a Hollywood guy. What does Hollywood have against Star Wars, or against what Star Wars represented?
Okay, here's what I'll do: a quick assessment of 50 years of 45 years of of media history and cultural history. It was a cultural phenomenon, arguably the most impactful um, intellectual property or IP, most impactful cultural IP since Mozart or something like that, right? Like Star Wars has so permeated culture that it's, it's in our, may the force be with you instantly became, ubiquitous. And so what, I see Chloe over here bashing Star Wars as well in the comment section, having never seen it. For me, and what made Star Wars a success, it's a, kind of this perfect arc, is it's good triumphing over evil against all odds, right? It's the
Yeah.
the the hero slaying the dragon and getting the girl in the end. And technically in Star Wars, it's just getting a medal around his neck from the girl that ends up, going with the other guy. But that
It's
fits
his
that
sister.
category.
Come on. Ugh.
Well, I don't think Lucas even had that figured out by that time. I think he was still figuring out the details of who this is going to be or whatever, what the relationship is, what. But slaying, like destroying the Death Star is slaying the dragon, right? And
Right.
then the victory at the end, the award and the recognition is getting the girl in the end, right? So, and it's good triumphing over evil. And the Force obviously is that parallel, that metaphor for God, right? And so we shouldn't be, it's one thing to say, oh, it's pagan and you are, delving into Satan's territory if you go into this. No, God created all things, and everything is a reflection of God. Everything is either an imitation or a reflection. And as a mature Christian, you can recognize that and see the power of storytelling. So what Star Wars showed is the most powerful thing in the universe is a well-told story, right? And so what I experienced as a 7-year-old was that good triumphing over evil against all odds, justice prevailing. And I instantly gravitated to that. Justice prevailing. It shaped me. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And I translated that as, I'm going to be a filmmaker, right? I want to do this particular thing. Fast forward, I come across a story of a young kid in the desert whose family is massacred by an empire, gets networked with a rebel group, and this hero, this Luke Skywalker character, gets put into position to fire a shot into the Death Star, which was the head of the genocidal maniac Talat Pasha, right? It's like this parallel that it was like a foreshadowing of what I would be experiencing in my life, right? And that's how it all, for me. But what's happened with the IP, right? George Lucas made a bunch of films, made a bunch of money. He became what he resented, right? He was a rebel filmmaker, didn't want to be a part of the corporate system, and then he became the corporate system. Yes. And then he sells Lucasfilm for $4 billion to Disney, which means all bets are off. They're going to take. So what has happened is those who are now the gatekeepers of the Star Wars narrative, they think that they are changing the world for the better, right? They believe that this mental disorder, right, this LGBTQ phenomena, which is a mental health disorder, right, that they think that's the future. They think that we're all growing and evolving as humans, and so they believe that they're the gatekeepers, that because they're in a position that they have their finger on the influential story, that they're going to usher in or be. They think they're doing a moral good by injecting into the culture the narratives that people should believe, right? It's literally
right.
It's the opposite. It's not us going and recognizing truth in the story. It's like that we're gonna force the story on people so that they'll believe.
Well, and sorry to interrupt, but
no,
is it also that they have to destroy first? They have to destroy the prevailing story. They had to. I personally, I think Lucas destroyed it with Jar Jar Binks. Okay, and it's funny how everybody has forgotten that disaster. Right? It has been so
not
bad.
Me.
Oh, okay. You're triggered again. I see. You know, but so Lucas, like I said, I think it started, maybe even started with the Ewoks. The Ewoks were a little, too cute for me, but so it was already, so maybe that's George Lucas selling his soul, maybe as a for just, okay, I'm not going to make this about deep spiritual things or allegory. I'm going to go for marketing or whatever it was, which is a powerful pull, right? But anyways, but now I see they not only have to push their agenda, they have to destroy the idea of, like you said, of good triumphing over evil or having a hero at all. A hero is not, we're not supposed to look up to someone who overcomes adversity. That's, we're supposed to look up to people who just have raw power over us. That's who it is. And they'll force us, it's like the four fingers thing I keep going back to, I don't care how many times you tell me this is four fingers. It's not four fingers. It's whatever I tell you it is, so we're not earning this. We're not here to earn your favor or your respect. You will swallow what we're
submit.
We're shoving down your throat. So yeah, I'm just wondering if that's part of it. But like I say, you're in Hollywood. Is this an overt thing in Hollywood, or is it just under the?
It's a spirit, right? It's if something is not built upon the foundation of Christianity, right? If it's not built upon the foundation of truth, it's inevitably going to corrupt, right? So I think George Lucas was inspired, right? I think he had this idea, and the proof is in the pudding, right? And I think Star Wars, and particularly The Empire Strikes Back, those two films were successful. What George Lucas brought to the table was a space Western, right? With kind of traditional story arc and limited capacity, right? The vision he had, they didn't have the technology to bring it to pass. So Star Wars created the special effects industry, right? Star Wars is responsible for special effects coming to what they've become. They had to build all these things because they had a deadline, and he had a guy that was in charge of it, and they're like, we have to have all these shots done by such and such a date. And the guy's like, we have 2 of them, and we have, right? And it forced, and I think that combination of George Lucas's idea combined with the constraints of technology made something so unique, so artistic. I think it was God did it, and that it was, in the grand scheme of things, a net positive for a number of reasons, right? Storytelling, right? Jesus Christ was the greatest storyteller, right? And so this brought the film industry to a new level. And I think that's what God is using, right? The Passion of the Christ, The Chosen, Sound of Freedom, right? The movie making industry began to thrive because God wants to use it, right? And it's all being set up. God has a plan that's unfolding, and so none of this is a surprise to him. None of it's out of his control. He is doing something. And so I, being a diehard Star Wars fan as a kid, was a part of shaping me into who I'm supposed to be, a storyteller. And I'm able to say Star Wars was only a foreshadowing, or Star Wars was only a copy of God's story, right? Because Luke Skywalker is the savior, right? It's literally a reflection of what God is doing. And if you look in Scripture, there are saviors prior to Jesus, right? There's Joseph, who goes and takes the land, right? That is a foreshadowing of the Jesus narrative, of Jesus being the conquering hero. And then after Jesus, there are the disciples laying down their lives, or the Apostle Paul, the heroes. And so in history, even after Jesus, if you look at church history, there are these hero types that are, if Jesus is the perfect center of history, there are echoes before him coming, and there are echoes after him coming of God's pattern of redemption in human stories, right? Moses is a precursor to Jesus. Martin Luther is an echo after Jesus, right? So God does things in patterns, and I believe the Sogom and Telerian story is one of those echoes of the Christ narrative. Sogomon laid down his life to destroy the Death Star, and he wins, right? He prevails and is the hero. So I'm bashing Star Wars too, but not the originals, right? George
Right.
Lucas began the decline of the thing he did. He was used by God, right? And I think that's where it ties into the title divine inspiration. He had divine inspiration, but didn't know it was from God, right? I think.
And as man will do, we corrupted it. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And our time is passed. We're out of time.
Well, when you get on a roll, man, you get on a roll. So
well,
that's good. Though. I knew you would be. I knew this would be a good.
I saw that title and I'm like, oh, okay, I see where he's going.
Okay. I lobbed a nice little fat softball up there for you, didn't I?
Yes, sir. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're onward and upward. We got things happening. We'll give you an update on. We had a meeting last night. Well, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, definitely.
All right, everybody.
Happy
That's
4th,
it for
everybody.
today.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Yes, happy 4th.